The Library of Living Pages. Part I, The Portal of Dreams. In the heart of the sprawling city of Aldwen, nestled between bustling market streets and quiet alleyways, stood the ancient Library of Living Pages. A place of wonder and mystery, its tall spires seemed to pierce the heavens, and its many stained glass windows shimmered with an otherworldly glow even on the dullest days. To the citizens of Aldwen, the library was a marvel, but to young Tomar Reed, it was home. Tomar, barely 20 and the youngest librarian in Aldwen's history, had spent his entire life surrounded by books. His parents had been caretakers of the library before him, and though they had passed on when he was just a child, their love for the library and its secrets had seeped into his very bones. The boy had grown up exploring its endless shelves, which seemed to stretch infinitely upward and outward, as though defying the laws of space. More than once, Tomar had stumbled upon a book whose pages whispered secrets in languages he didn't yet know or maps that shimmered with golden trails leading to unknown lands. Yet, despite all its wonders, Tomar had long yearned for more. He had read the greatest adventures of history, the daring exploits of treasure hunters in ancient tombs, the battles between heroes and dark sorcerers, and the thrilling quests through enchanted lands. These stories burned in his heart, awakening a longing to live them himself, rather than merely read about them. One evening, as the amber glow of sunset bathed the library, Tomar stood before the Arch of Invocation, the library's most guarded secret. Crafted from shimmering silver and encrusted with glowing runes, the arch was said to grant access to any story within the library's walls. By stepping through it, one could enter the world of a chosen book and take the place of its protagonist. Tomar had spent years deciphering the runes on the arch, preparing for this moment. In his hands, he clutched an old leather-bound book titled The Lost Crown of Edrias, a tale of a daring adventurer seeking a mythical crown hidden in the ruins of a cursed kingdom. The crown is said to grant its bearer the power to heal or destroy, Tomar murmured, reciting the book's first line. His heart raced as he traced the glowing runes along the arch with trembling fingers. A happy ending awaits, he reassured himself. With a deep breath, Tomar stepped through. The world spun, colors and sounds blurring into a kaleidoscope of sensations. Then, with a sudden jolt, Tomar found himself standing on a rocky outcrop overlooking a sprawling jungle. The air was thick and humid, filled with the calls of unseen creatures. He looked down at himself. His simple librarian's robes were gone, replaced by sturdy leather armor, a satchel slung across his shoulder, and a gleaming sword at his side. So it begins, he whispered, exhilaration and trepidation mingling within him. As Tomar descended into the jungle, he marveled at the vividness of the world around him. The scents of blooming flowers and the distant roar of a waterfall filled the air, and sunlight filtered through the dense canopy above. He felt alive in a way he never had before. Yet his wonder was soon interrupted. As he crossed a vine-covered path, a low growl echoed through the underbrush. Tomar froze, hand instinctively reaching for his sword. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike any he had seen, a hulking, panther-like beast with scales instead of fur, its eyes glowing with a malevolent green light. "Step back," Tomar ordered, though his voice trembled. The beast lunged. Tomar barely managed to draw his sword in time, the clash of steel against scale reverberating through the jungle. It was only through a combination of sheer determination and a fortunate stumble that Tomar managed to drive the beast off. Breathing heavily, he wiped his brow. Lesson 1, he muttered to himself. Adventure is far more dangerous than it looks in books. Later that evening, as the jungle darkened, Tomar stumbled upon a small campsite, its fire crackling warmly. A figure sat beside it, cloaked in shadows. care to share your fire? Tomar asked, cautious yet hopeful. The figure turned, revealing a wizened face framed by a tangled white beard. The man's eyes gleamed with mischief and wisdom. "You're not from here," the stranger said, his voice as gravelly as the jungle floor. I am," Tomar began, but the man waved a hand dismissively. "No need for lies. The jungle knows its own." He gestured for Tomar to sit. "Call me Merrick." "And you, lad?" "Tomar," he replied, settling by the fire. Merrick studied him for a moment before reaching into his satchel and pulling out a small, intricately carved amulet. "If you're venturing to the ruins of Edrias, you'll need this. It wards off the shadows that haunt those lands." Tomar hesitated but accepted the amulet, its cool surface thrumming faintly in his palm. "Why help me?" The old man chuckled. "Call it a whim. Or perhaps I see a spark of something rare in you." The next morning, Merrick was gone, leaving only faint footprints in the damp earth. Determined, Tomar pressed on, the amulet hanging from his neck. Unbeknownst to him, a pair of glowing green eyes watched from the shadows, a serpentine voice whispering into the wind, "He seeks the crown. He must not succeed." And so, Tomar's journey truly began, the stakes far higher than he yet understood. For the lost crown of Edrias was no mere relic, it was a key to power that many would kill to possess. Part 2, The Shadows of Edrias. Tomar pressed deeper into the jungle, the vibrant greenery giving way to a gloomier landscape. The once lush trees were twisted and gnarled, their blackened branches clawing at the air. The ground grew soft and marshy, and the air thickened with an eerie, unshakable silence. The amulet Merrick had given him glowed faintly against his chest, its light dim but steady, providing a sliver of comfort. The map Tomar had memorized from the lost crown of Edrias guided his steps. According to the story, the ruins lay beyond the Veil of Shadows, a cursed region where time and space twisted. Few dared to enter it, and fewer still emerged. As the day wore on, Tomar stumbled across a small stone bridge spanning a murky stream. There, he encountered another traveler. The figure was draped in a dark cloak, their face obscured by a hood. When they turned to face him, Tomar saw only a pair of glowing amber eyes. "Traveling alone in these parts is foolish," the figure said, their voice smooth yet cold. "You'll never reach Edrias alive." Tomar tightened his grip on his sword. "Who are you?" The figure stepped closer, revealing a pale, angular face beneath the hood. Their lips curled into a faint smile. "Call me Surface." "And you are?" "Tomar," he replied, uncertain whether to trust this stranger. "Ah, a bold one," Surface mused, their eyes narrowing. "Let me guess, you seek the crown." Tomar hesitated. Surface chuckled darkly. "Relax, librarian. I've no interest in relics. But I've walked this path before and lived to tell the tale. If you're wise, you'll let me guide you through the veil." The thought of companionship, even from someone as enigmatic as Surface, was tempting. "Fine," Tomar said reluctantly. "But no tricks?" Surface smirked. "Of course not. I'll even share a secret: the veil feeds on fear. Lose your resolve, and it will consume you." As they ventured deeper, the veil began to manifest. The jungle dissolved into a shifting haze of shadows and whispers, the air tinged with an unnatural chill. Shapes flickered in Tomar's peripheral vision, phantoms of the past, forgotten faces, and long-lost dreams. "Don't stop," Surface warned. "It's all illusion." But Tomar's resolve wavered when a figure stepped out of the mist. It was his mother, her kind eyes filled with sadness. Tomar, she said softly, her voice trembling. Why did you leave me? Tomar faltered, the ache of loss surging within him. Surface grabbed his arm, their grip firm and unyielding. It's not her, they hissed. Move, or you'll never leave this place. Tearing his gaze from the phantom, Tomar stumbled forward, the shadows clawing at his heels. The amulet around his neck pulsed brightly, burning away the lingering illusions. At last, the mist thinned, revealing a sprawling ruin bathed in pale moonlight. Edrias. The ruins were a maze of crumbling stone walls and towering pillars, their surfaces etched with glowing runes. In the center of the city stood a grand temple, its roof partially collapsed, exposing the sky. That's where the crown lies, Tomar said, pointing. Srafis nodded but made no move to follow. This is where I leave you. You're not coming? Tomar asked, surprised. I've brought you this far. Beyond this point, the crown's guardian will test your worth. Survive, and you'll see me again. Without another word, Srafis melted into the shadows. Tomar approached the temple, each step heavier than the last. The air inside was thick with magic, the walls alive with faint whispers. At the temple's heart stood an ornate pedestal, and atop it rested the crown of Edrias. Its golden surface gleamed, encrusted with jewels that sparkled like trapped starlight. As Tomar reached for it, the ground trembled, and a deep voice rumbled through the chamber. Who dares claim the crown? A massive figure emerged from the shadows, a towering, armored knight wielding a glowing great sword. His face was hidden behind a dark helm, but his eyes burned with violet fire. I am Tomar Reed, he said, gripping his sword tightly. I seek the crown to bring hope, not destruction. The knight raised his blade, its edge crackling with energy. Prove your resolve, mortal. Show me you are worthy. The battle was fierce. The knight's strikes were thunderous, his movements unnaturally swift for his size. Tomar fought with every ounce of skill and determination he had, drawing on lessons he'd learned in the library and instincts honed during his journey. Yet it wasn't enough. The knight's strength overwhelmed him, forcing him to his knees. Yield, the knight commanded. Tomar's grip on his sword faltered, but then his gaze fell upon the amulet. Its light flared brighter than ever, as though urging him to rise. No, Tomar said, pushing himself to his feet. I won't give up. The crown is not for me, it's for the people who need its power to heal their lands. I fight for them. The knight hesitated, his fiery eyes narrowing. Then, to Tomar's shock, he lowered his weapon. Your words carry truth, the knight said. Few would sacrifice themselves for others. The crown is yours, but beware its power. Use it wisely, or it will consume you. With that, the knight dissolved into a swirl of violet flames, leaving Tomar alone with the crown. As Tomar placed the crown in his satchel, the temple began to quake. The runes on the walls flared, and the whispers grew louder, warning of impending collapse. Tomar sprinted for the exit, narrowly escaping as the temple crumbled behind him. Outside, Srafis waited, leaning casually against a pillar. You survived, they said, a hint of approval in their tone. Barely, Tomar replied, catching his breath. And yet, the true challenge lies ahead, Srafis said, their expression darkening. The crown's power will attract others, those who seek to twist it for their own ends. Be ready, librarian. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the ruins, Tomar felt the weight of his journey settle on his shoulders. The crown was his, but so were the dangers it brought. And his story was far from over. Part 3, The Keeper of Stories. The journey back to Aldwyn was filled with unease. The crown of Edrias, though safely stored in Tomar's satchel, seemed heavier with each step. Its faint hum resonated in his mind, a subtle but persistent reminder of its power. Surface, ever silent and enigmatic, walked beside him, their sharp eyes scanning the horizon for danger. The crown was no ordinary artifact. Tomar had glimpsed its immense power during his battle with the knight. And though he had resisted the temptation to keep it, its allure lingered like a shadow in his thoughts. "Do you feel it?" Srafis broke the silence as they approached the gates of Aldwyn. "Yes," Tomar admitted. "But I won't let it control me." Srafis gave a faint smile. "Good. But remember, the most dangerous stories are the ones we tell ourselves." Back in the library of living pages, the warmth of the familiar walls offered a fleeting sense of safety. Tomar wasted no time descending to the hidden vaults beneath the library. These vaults, known only to the keepers of stories, housed artifacts too dangerous for the world above. The vault doors opened with a low groan, revealing a labyrinth of shelves and cases. Each relic pulsed faintly with its own aura, the air thick with ancient magic. Tomar approached an empty pedestal engraved with protective runes. He placed the crown inside a crystal dome, and the runes flared to life, their light sealing the artifact in a shimmering barrier. "It's done," he whispered, stepping back. In the days that followed, Tomar tried to settle back into his routine, but his thoughts often strayed to the crown. Though safely locked away, it felt as though its story was not yet complete. One evening, as he studied an ancient manuscript in his reading nook, Srafis appeared in the doorway, their expression unreadable. "Trouble?" Tomar asked, setting the book aside. "Not yet," Srafis replied, leaning casually against the doorframe. "But artifacts like the crown rarely stay quiet for long." Tomar sighed. "Then we'll protect it. That's what the library is for." Srafis tilted their head. "You've changed, librarian. Once, you only dreamed of adventure. Now, you're a guardian of stories." "Someone has to be," Tomar said, a faint smile on his lips. Weeks turned into months, and Tomar found a new rhythm in his role. The library became more than a sanctuary for books, it was a refuge for those seeking wisdom and a repository for the world's most powerful relics. Tomar continued his studies, honing his skills as both a scholar and a protector. Yet, as peaceful as things seemed, the memory of the crown's power lingered. Tomar knew that his adventure had only been the beginning. The world was vast, and countless tales remained unwritten, some dangerous, some wondrous, and all waiting to be discovered. Epilogue: The Call of the Library. Late one night, as Tomar patrolled the library's halls, the air grew still. A faint light shimmered in the atrium, and Tomar followed it to a large, ornate book lying open on a pedestal. The pages glowed faintly, the words shifting into new shapes. Tomar leaned closer, and the title of the book revealed itself, The Keeper's Journey. His heart raced as he realized the truth: the library had chosen him for a new story. The adventures he had dreamed of as a child were far from over. As the light from the book bathed the room in golden warmth, Tomar smiled. "Well then," he said to himself, "let's see where this chapter leads." And with that, he turned the page.